Welcome back. Jay, you told us the first thing that we would do in children's ministry. Now, we're all prayed up, or at least we're going to get prayed up. What's the second thing that I would do as a director of children's ministry?
I think one of the most important things that happens that I've seen in churches I've served and people I've coached in ministry is there's a really strong need to raise the value consistently of children's ministry amongst the body as a whole.
Or do we have some kind of problem in our churches with the value of children's ministry? By the way, that's a setup question.
Right. I think for many years, I think that people have always given a certain amount of value to children's ministry, but what I've seen over the 30 years that I've served is sort of there's been a pendulum. There's been moments when children's ministry seems to be more valued than other times, but it always rotates around the leader. It's the leader who is the person who creates value by communication, by programming, by different things that they would do that would indicate that ministry is valuable. Yeah.
So, how would you, as a leader in your church, go about the essential task, I'm hearing, of taking children's ministry from this level of perceived value in the congregation up to this level? And my perception also would be once it's up to this level, so many more doors are going to be opened.
There's a lot of ways that I see to leverage that raising of that value. One is certainly to consider leadership. If you are board run, elder run, pastoral staff run, however that works in your setting, but certainly getting to the highest people of leadership that you can and articulate children's ministry in the most positive terms.
One of the dilemmas that oftentimes children's ministries face is that they can seem unnoticed behind the walls and develop a martyrdom syndrome. Nobody knows, nobody cares. And the people that begin to gravitate to that begin to echo that refrain. Oh, gosh, we're just a children's ministry. We're understaffed and nobody understands our world. And how do you break that cycle?
One of my favorite stories about that, Roger, is this story where a person comes back from a really great worship service and they walk into the nursery or children's area where a worker has just been thrown up on in the last 10 minutes and the person who comes in says, "You missed a really great service," and the children's worker is ready to strangle the person at that point. The martyrdom syndrome, I think, has happened because children's ministry has for a long time been perceived as the other building ministry, the down in the basement ministry. But what I have tried to communicate with leaders is that don't fall into that trap of that stair-step kind of ministry, but be positive, speak of ministry as a privilege, begin to get us all into that different mindset.
Right.
Yeah.
We probably have a lot more authority and probably have a lot more influence and a lot more, I hate to put it this way, but bargaining chips than we would admit.
Mm-hmm.
And why can't we take responsibility for making this change and turnaround based on a positive projection of what God wants to do in children's ministry? How compelling that is, as opposed to, oh boy.
Well, and in some cases, you might be the only cheerleader, but God's called you to be that cheerleader.
Okay.
So you go out there and lead the charge as if, I think as a speaker, I've done a lot of seminar speaking, and I know the difference between when I'm speaking to a group of 1,000 people, the energy is a certain way, and when you speak to 10, the energy is a certain way. But I've just had to force myself in some of those places to have the energy level that you need to be effective in your ministry there. And so for children's ministry leaders, I think we just have to consider our own passion, our own enthusiasm, and our reality is that we may be the only ones that at a particular time that have that kind of attitude about ministry to kids. But we know it's important, we know we need to do it, and sometimes we just have to go for it.
We're working for the King.
That's right.
And he says, hey, charge.
That's it.
Any hints of what I can do with my facility, with my visibility, that helps other people perceive that, wow, children's ministry is happening here. It really must be important. How do you do that?
You know, in many churches, there's a couple vehicles for that. Oftentimes, it can be still pulpit communication. It can be leadership who speaks about us. I have taken on the role of communicating with my senior leadership in such a way that I pretty much monitor this, that 80% of my communication to them is positive. It's about things that are happening in a great way. It's only on occasion that I ask for something, because I want to create the mindset with our leadership that it's not about us whining about where this ministry down someplace else, but that we want to really focus on the positive things.
Yeah. I have also found that in our facility, that when I do something special with the walls or create a special stage area, and people begin to notice, they begin to say, wow, something's happening here.
Right.
Kids really must be important. And people, parents especially, they pick up right away, hey, kids really matter here.
Yeah, if you can capture people like in your lobbies or entryways, and you can do, one of the cool things about being in children's ministry is we don't have to really maybe go under the same guidelines everybody else does, because we're a kids ministry, right? Right. So
Extra grace.
Yes, so if we want to give away ice cream and
That's
whatever.
right.
But yeah, I think that's a great idea. Anytime, if we look at our buildings and we think about where people come in, maybe that's where we need to promote and raise the value in various ways.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Think about that in your group. What could you do in your church that would help you raise the value of children's ministry? Discuss that now.